Robert's designs are now available. You can actually buy them as framed artwork, and I love that you can now have a piece of Flutter art on your wall. So we're going to talk about a couple of tools, and to start off with one that if you're a designer, you're probably already familiar with, and that's Supernova. And so I want to invite Jiri Tredzak to talk a little bit about what Supernova are doing with Flutter. Jiri?
Thanks, Tim. So I'm a developer. In fact, I've been a developer for the last 20 years, and most of that time was spent building beautiful, interactive websites and applications. However, there was always this one thing that I really hated. It was the feeling that designers create something so amazing, only for developers to recreate it from scratch. This, of course, isn't without its problems, as I'm pretty sure you know maybe too well. Details get lost, pixels get forgotten, and it just makes everyone so angry all the time. Worse yet, however, it leads to a very inefficient process, wasting time and resources that could be put somewhere else. So here is my question for all of you. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could automate all the boring and tedious tasks in a process and instead focus on being creative once again? For the past 4 years, we've built a solution that makes this a reality, and I would like to show you how it works right now. So Supernova works off of design tools that you already like to use, like Sketch or XD. I have a sketch design here, and if I were to create it from scratch, I would probably create the project, then export the assets, export the fonts, code the layout. It's just a lot of work. So instead, I will bring this design to a Supernova. I will select Flutter, and I will also select the screen that I want to import. And once I do that, everything becomes a Flutter component. So now everything is a Flutter component. Here on the left side, I actually have editor, where I can edit the behavior of the application, while here on the right side, I have a real Flutter application running in real time. But let's do something more amazing. There are two components that I would like to change into actual components. So first is the button. What I can do is I can convert this bunch of layers into actual button, and as if by magic, it actually becomes a button. And even though it looks the same, when I click on it, it behaves like a button. And I can do the same thing with a list of speakers. So instead, I will use a grid list component. And now it becomes a scrollable list. However, it doesn't really look the same because it's scrolling horizontally or vertically, right? So I'll switch to vertical layout because Supernova exposes all the properties that you have available on all the components. I can also probably change the left inset just so it looks nice. So I think components are now pretty much done. Let's move on to the layout. As you know, every application should be responsive, but fortunately, I don't have to do that because while I was doing the components, Supernova computed the Flexbox layout for me. And so to show you that, I can just grab the edge and resize the application, and it works just like that. But I think the application is still a bit boring, so let's add some fun to it. I can also trigger animations, and because we have our own animation engine in Supernova, I can actually make animation on fly. I could create some custom animation, but for this demo, I will select one from the demo library, so just maybe some bounce in. And now, when I tap on a button, it actually bounces in, and that's it. I think my application is now pretty much done, but I actually have a few more things to show you. You see, the true power of Supernova comes from a production code. And so if I click this magical button on the top, it actually generates the production code for me. And it has all the components, the entire layout, and all the assets done. And now, as the last thing, I could export it, and I can either export or I can copy-paste the code. But I actually have support for hot reload here, so I'll enable that. And once I choose the hot reload target, I can switch to Visual Studio, which is already synchronized. And now, when I restart the application and open the simulator, it actually shows the entire application. And if I go back to the Supernova, I change something, maybe make it a little more dramatic, I go back to Visual Studio and synchronize it. It will actually show the button. And that's it. The entire application in 3 minutes. I think that's pretty amazing. Yeah. And for this reason, I am now very excited to announce that full Flutter support is launching today at supernova.io. And because we think Flutter is the future of cross-platform apps, we are also making it free for all Flutter designers and developers, so you can build great apps together. But before I go, I actually have something amazing to share with you. Ever since the introduction of Flutter for Web, we've been hard at work bringing Supernova to everyone without any limitation. In the upcoming months, we will be releasing a completely new Supernova, rebuilt from the ground up in Flutter. It features advanced support for enterprise teams, as well as code-enabled design system manager that serves both designers and developers equally. Together with Flutter, we will close the gap between design and code. I'm now really excited that Supernova is joining the Flutter ecosystem, and I cannot wait to see what you create with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jiri. I love that not only is Supernova providing tools to help you build Flutter apps, they're going to be using Flutter to build Supernova. That really, I think, speaks to, hopefully the power that we can bring. So that's one tool. And I want to shift gears just temporarily, because we want to talk a little bit about the creative experience with tools like Supernova. And one of the most inspirational people I've had the chance to work with over my professional career is Grant Skinner. And I'd like to introduce you to him now. Grant.
Well, thanks so much, Tim. I am so excited to be here. I'm getting old. 20 years. For 20 years now, I've been creating digital experiences with a wide variety of platforms and a plethora of different frameworks. Most of them are great at what they do. They let you build functional apps or functional experiences, but there have been very few that have really gotten my creative juices flowing. The first platform that I really fell in love with was Flash. I know it's kind of a dirty word now, but I loved it. What drew me to Flash was that I could fuse design and code, and I could use it to build both beautiful things, horrible things, but always unique things. It also introduced me to one of the most passionately creative communities that I've ever had the privilege of being a part of. I owe Flash a lot. It really drove my love of design and code, and it let me build the company that I'm still running today. We built a reputation that's let us work with companies like Adobe and Google, Atari, and Disney. But, fast forward 10 years, Flash maybe wasn't quite as viable as it was when I started. But HTML5 was really building up to take its place. And, it was very similar to Flash. If we could imagine something, we could build it in HTML5. And so we were able to seamlessly pivot and take on this new platform. I still really love the web stack, and we still do a ton of work on it. But, it's 10 years later now, and, well, I'm standing here at a Flutter conference, so you might be able to guess where I'm headed with this spiel. But a really good friend of mine approached me a while back, and he really wanted to build an app for a game that we played together called Destiny. And at about the same time, I had a client that introduced me to Flutter. And I kind of poked around a little bit, gotten pretty interested in it, and I suggested, hey, why don't we combine these things? Why don't we build a Destiny app using Flutter? And, he said, okay. So we spent the first week or so arguing about state management, because that's how you start any modern dev program. And then he started writing the data layer, and I started building the UI. In a really surprisingly short amount of time, we were able to release an app that we called Redrix for both iOS and Android. And this app made it through app review on its very first try. It's hovered between about a 4.8, 4.9 rating in general. We've logged 0 crashes on the iOS app. And we had a lot of fun building it. So, and we've had a ton of feedback from the community about how smooth it feels, how pretty it is. And so to me, this is really a testament of what the Flutter team has created. The fact that we've been able to build this with so few issues, being just a couple of people with no experience whatsoever in Flutter or Dart when we started off, and just doing it for fun in our spare time, is really amazing to me. See, to me, a good UI framework makes it easy to realize a design. A great UI framework inspires you to make that design better. And I really feel like I've found that with Flutter. I don't feel like I'm beholden to the framework. I feel like I'm elevated by it. There's a few kind of key points that, for me, stand out in what has made me like Flutter. First is Dart. I was pretty new to Dart, and I tend to be a little bit cynical of new languages, but it took a lot of the best things from C# and combined with some of the things that I love about JavaScript and gave me this language that was just really easy to learn and easy to work with. Second thing is that there's a lot of existing building blocks, right? There's tons of first-party and third-party widgets. They're all open source, so I can use them as I want, or I can modify them to make them do what I want them to do. And when they don't do what I need them to do, I have really low-level access to both layout and rendering, so I can do those like special weird things that make experiences great. And when that's done, I can wrap that up in a widget and take advantage of the compositional model of Flutter and just inject right back into the normal UI. Makes it really easy to both share and to integrate. And finally, I mean, no Flutter talk is finished without a mention of hot reload. As a creative coder, I find hot reload to just be such an exceptional thing. It reduces the barrier of exploration. It makes it so much easier to play. I can iterate, I can refine, I can try things out, I can see how they look. I don't have that 1-minute compile time that just doesn't make it worth it to try and tweak that 0.13 to a 0.14 and see if it looks better. So as I was working on Redrix, I kept going back to my team and kind of sharing the things that I had learned. And I was really excited about how much my team was getting into this. Not just my developers, but even my designers seemed really interested in Flutter as a platform. So when the Flutter team came to us and challenged us to basically show off what you could do with modern Flutter by creating a series of UI vignettes, it was like a total no-brainer for us to say yes. So we did what we do. We jumped in with both feet. We started throwing together ideas. We started exploring the platform, doing research, and sketching out ideas. And this is a tiny sample. We sketched out a lot of ideas. And we specifically made a point of trying to select ideas that we wanted to build, not select ideas that would be easy to build inside of Flutter. And to me, this is important, because it's really easy to make demos that are tailored to work on a new platform. It's much harder to find good ideas and then force them to work on that platform. So ultimately, there wasn't a single idea that we weren't able to realize. Like, yeah, we made compromises once in a while, but there was also a lot of cases where our idea got better as we implemented it. And I think, again, that's really exciting. I'm super happy with the end result of what we built, really proud of it, and I'd like to share a little video that we put together about them. Thanks so much. I'm really excited that we finally get to show everyone this. We've had so much fun building these vignettes. They are fully open source, and you can get information about them here and grab the source code. I really encourage you to check them out, play with them, rip out the pieces you like, throw away the parts you don't, and use them to make something really, really cool. In addition to the source code, we're planning on doing some blog posts over the next little while, talking about sort of specific things that we learned or challenges that we faced. And we're also going to take some of the little reusable chunks and repackage them as widgets, add proper documentation. Finally, we are hoping to release, we'll see what Apple does, we're hoping to release both an iOS and Android app that'll let you play around with these vignettes without having to compile the code. If you stick around, later today, I'm going to be doing a talk with one of my designers, and we're going to talk about the process that we use to conceive of, design, and ultimately produce these vignettes. I hope you can join us there. I'd like to close by thanking the whole Google team, the whole Flutter community for making Flutter such a fun sandbox to play inside of. One of the things that really draws me to new technologies is the people around it, and I'm really excited to get to know you all a little bit better. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Grant. Those samples are beautiful, and you can experience some of them over in the expo area if you're physically here in person. If not, then flutter.gskinner.com. So we're getting towards the end, but one more I want to talk about. For designers, creative tools are almost synonymous with one company, and that's Adobe. Their Creative Cloud Suite is probably the default choice for any professional designer. And to talk about their experiences with Flutter, I'd like to welcome Kerry Schatz to the stage. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you, Tim. So, first of all, I'm excited and honored to be able to be here to present what we've been collaborating on with Google. So designers excel at creating rich and engaging designs that delight users. And Adobe XD, free by the way, enables design and team collaboration at the speed of thought, while quickly and easily targeting multiple platforms, form factors, and surfaces, the epitome of ambient computing. This is a perfect fit for Flutter's ability to deliver beautiful experiences across multiple platforms. Now, the problem with that is that translating these designs to code is a huge pain point, especially when you have to do it time after time after time when the design changes. So to help, we have collaborated together with Google to create a plugin for Adobe XD that exports real Flutter code that a developer like you or I could use immediately without having to reinterpret the designer's intent. I'm excited to give you an early look at what this looks like, so let's dive right in. So here I have my Visual Studio Code environment already set up. On the left, I have my iOS simulator running. I already have an app started, and I also am running the Dart Code plugin for Visual Studio Code. I also have Adobe XD running. Now, if you're not at all familiar with Adobe XD, it is a tool for designing at the speed of thought, user experiences for screen design across all sorts of platforms. And I have a small design here, a small snippet from Grant's designs for his application. So what I want to do here is just show you the power of this plugin. This plugin lives inside the plugin panel, and it will be available when we release it through the plugin manager. You can simply do this in application, search, install. You don't even have to restart XD. But let's show you how this works. I'm going to zoom into the badge here. And what I want to do actually is take this badge and transplant it into a more complex design. But let's start simple. So this badge has, it's a really pretty badge. So it has an icon, it has some graphics, it has some text to it. This plugin lets me do two things. I can copy this design and paste it directly as code, which is really cool. But I think even more amazing is it lets me do this as a reusable component. So it generates files automatically for me. So I'm going to select this artboard, and artboards can be used as containers for screens or reusable widgets. And I'm just going to come over here and click Export Selected for Flutter. Now, it's already told me that it's updated a file because I told it ahead of time where this file lives on my disk. Otherwise, you would have a picker. Now, nothing has changed in my sim because I need to go tell Visual Studio Code and Flutter where this lives. So I'm going to come in here. Oops. There we go. And I'm going to just use the badge, save this, and you can see immediately that we have a nearly pixel-perfect representation of what was in XD. And this is real Flutter code. So if you want to come in and inspect this file, you can do just that. And it looks just like you would expect. Super cool, isn't it? Okay, but that's not all. This is to me what is the coolest part of this. So if I come back to XD, and I'm going to drill into this layer a little bit. And I don't know how obvious it is on screen, but there's a few layers in here that have a label that starts with P and a colon. And this means that they're parameterized. So this allows me as the designer to give you a design, but the developer to supply their own data. So I'm going to come back to Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to just overwrite what the designer has given me with some of my own text. So I'm going to say best copy, maybe for the category, and teleporter for the title. And immediately it's updated inside of my simulator. What's even more cool is this separates out my data from my design. So if I, as the designer, decide that, you know what, I want to change this color, I can do that and re-export it. And immediately it's available inside of my simulator. And notice it's kept my data. So this lets me segregate out my data from my design. Really, really cool stuff. Okay, so this is a simple example, but what about something more complex? So thanks to Grant, we have this super complicated screen here. And how is this going to work, right? So I'm going to re-export it, this time to a separate file. I'm going to tell Visual Studio Code to use it. And just like that, we have a pixel-for-pixel representation of what was in XD. And this is real Flutter code, too. But I think there's a little bit of an empty space down here. So I'm going to take this badge and paste it in there. Copy. I'm going to position it just where I want it. Re-export, and our badge is now in place. Super, super powerful. So I hope you can see that with this small example, how powerful this could actually be. So what we're really excited to announce is that this is going to be available open source. So we invite you to sign up at the waitlist on screen, and we will get you into that, and we're happy to have you play around. We will release to the wider community later this year. Sign up at the link on the screen to join the beta waitlist, and we can't wait to see what you do with this, with the combination of Adobe XD, with Flutter, and the XD to Flutter plugin. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Carrie. Wow, okay. So you've seen the two pieces individually and now together. Flutter as a platform that takes your code and lets you run it on any platform in an ambient computing world. Flutter as a platform to enable you to take your creative ideas and inspirations and turn them into beautiful experiences. You know, Flutter is at its heart an open source project. The value we derive for Google comes in part from the productivity gains realized from other product teams inside the company who use Flutter. But again, we build Flutter for you. We build Flutter with you. Our journey has taken us from a very mobile first focus towards this broader vision for Flutter as a portable UI toolkit. And we're going to continue to invest ourselves and with others in the ecosystem in designer and developer tools that increase both the productivity and the beauty of your finished application. But the thing that really compels me about Flutter and the community of which we're all parts is not necessarily the big apps. It's the small individual experiences. It's the stories that come from individuals, people who use Flutter to solve real problems that are personal to them. And I want to close with one example of that, a video that shows a little bit about how you can use Flutter in a very personal way. Let's roll that video.
The day Amani was born, we were very excited to meet our daughter.
Her birth was supposed to go as normal. It was a very normal pregnancy.
I mean, I look back and it is the happiest day of my life and the scariest day of my life, all wrapped up in a 24-hour period. When she was born, they can't get her oxygen level higher than about 80 to 85%. And they said it has to be in the high 90s. They decide that they're going to take her to the ICU or NICU. They told me she has a heart condition and she had open heart surgery. At 6 weeks, Amani finally came home. She might have been in the home setting, but she brought the hospital with us.
First year of her life, it was pretty grueling. She had her cardiologist, general surgeon, an ophthalmologist, a physical therapist, a feeding specialist, and an allergist.
It felt like she had more providers than most people would have in their lifetime.
Just thinking to myself, when is it all gonna stop? We found out about her eyes and we needed to start patching to help strengthen the eyes so that it did not develop into amblyopia, or lazy eyes as it's commonly called. Patching shuts off vision to one eye so that the other eye can get stronger.
We had to keep track of how many hours a day she was being patched. I would ask Danica every day, hey, did you patch Amani? And I felt bad asking that question, knowing that Danica was already overwhelmed. I thought, let me try to use what I know to be able to influence the future, even if it's in a tiny, small way. Patch Me was an idea to help us communicate better so that we could share information about the patching schedule right around the same time frame. Being a software architect, I saw this new technology called Flutter. It helped me to connect the dots to say, hey, I want to do this. I would wait till Amani was in bed and then take maybe an hour or two a night. I saw the Udemy course by App Brewery in collaboration with the Google team, so I felt like that was the right way to learn Flutter. Over the years, I've worked on all kinds of stuff, but Flutter has been the framework that I've been productive in the fastest. I was able to make Patch Me in a short time frame.
The awesome thing about the Patch Me app is that now gives some very objective information to give to the care providers, where before, sometimes you underestimate or overestimate it.
We realized that there is a need for this outside of our home. I decided that I should publish it to the App Store.
My hope is it'll definitely spread throughout the US for all, even the world.
Flutter allowed me to create Patch Me without having to sacrifice on either the app and its functionality or my family and my time with my family.
What the app gave back to me was a lot of control. I have the best life partner, and certainly children with special needs. It can either create a distance between parents or it can draw them closer, and I'm very happy it brought us closer.
Amani has overcome so much in her short life. All the pictures, when we look back at it, we see how fragile she was. And you look at her today as a baby and she's a daredevil. She is determined and headstrong. And my hope for Amani is that she continues to thrive and we as a family continue to thrive. She has changed me to the core. Now I want to spend my time